What if there were ancient, advanced civilizations that did way more than what our scientists and historians tell us? A great society that grew to a monumental technological age and then went dark for some unknown reason. Not even the smallest trace of them still exists. Or does it? That's the topic we're exploring today. Welcome to the Lore Chronicles. Imagine, if you will, in the vast expanse of time, there exists a captivating puzzle that beckons curious minds to unravel its secrets. It is known as the Silurian hypothesis, a fascinating idea that transports us to a time long before our own, where a remarkable civilization might have thrived. Imagine, if you will, a world shrouded in mystery where ancient beings known as the Silurians once roamed the earth. These intelligent and advanced creatures, not unlike the humans of today, built magnificent cities and harnessed extraordinary technologies. As we delve into the depths of this enthralling hypothesis, we embark on a journey of discovery, piercing together clues from the distant past and igniting our imagination with wonder and awe. So, my friends, prepare to venture into the realms of possibility, where the echoes of an ancient civilization whisper through the corridors of time, waiting to be unveiled. Long before humans walked the earth, there may have been a remarkable civilization called the Silurians. They lived millions of years ago, during a time when our planet looked very different. The Silurians were an advanced species, much like humans are today. They had their own cities, technologies, and way of life. The Silurian civilization would have been a sight to behold. Their cities might have been hidden deep underground or beneath the vast oceans. They might have built their homes using strong and sturdy materials like rocks and crystals. These structures would have been magnificent, with intricate designs and beautiful architecture. The Silurians had incredible technologies that were far beyond what we can even imagine. They might have had machines that could fly through the air or travel to distant planets. These machines would have been powered by advanced energy sources, harnessing the natural forces of their world. Their society was built on knowledge and curiosity. The Silurians were scientists and inventors, always seeking to understand the world around them, and they made amazing discoveries and inventions that helped them live comfortably. They had advanced medical tools and treatments to heal their ailments. They communicated using their own language and written scripts, and they expressed their creativity through art and music. But as time went on, something tragic happened. The Silurian civilization faced a great catastrophe that wiped out their cities and technologies. It could have been a massive natural disaster like a devastating earthquake or a catastrophic flood. Perhaps a sudden change in their environment like a drastic climate shift made it impossible for them to survive. Whatever the cause, the Silurian civilization was destroyed to the point where it became unrecognizable in our history. The passage of millions of years buried their cities deep beneath layers of earth, making it incredibly difficult for us to find any direct evidence of their existence. Today, scientists ponder the possibility of discovering traces of this ancient civilization. They study the rocks and sediments, searching for clues that might reveal the secrets of the Silurians. They explore the moon and Mars, hoping to find artifacts that may have been preserved in those less eroded environments. While we don't have concrete evidence of the Silurians, it's fascinating to think about the possibilities. It reminds us that our world has a long and mysterious history, with countless stories waiting to be discovered. The Silurian hypothesis invites us to use our imagination, to dream of civilizations that may have existed long before we did. So, let your imagination soar and imagine a time when the Silurian civilization thrived on Earth. Picture their advanced technologies, their majestic cities, and the tragedy that befell them. And remember, the beauty of science lies in exploring the unknown, seeking answers to questions that may have never been asked. Now, did this advanced civilization actually exist? Well, there is a Silurian hypothesis for a reason. Let's explore that together. The Silurian hypothesis is a thought experiment that assesses modern science's ability to detect evidence of a prior advanced civilization, perhaps several million years ago. The hypothesis explores the possibility of detecting an advanced civilization before humans in the geological record. The name Silurian derives from the eponymous sapient species from the BBC science fiction series Doctor Who. who in the series established an advanced civilization prior to humanity. Astrophysicists Adam Frank and Gavin Schmidt proposed the Silurian hypothesis in a 2018 paper, where they explored the possibility of finding direct evidence, such as technological artifacts, in the geological record. They argue that there has been sufficient fossil carbon to fuel an industrial civilization since the Carboniferous period, about 350 million years ago. However, finding direct evidence is likely due to the rarity of fossilization in Earth's exposed surface. The hypothesis raises the question of whether it would be possible to find geological fingerprints of a bygone civilization that expired millions of years ago. While the hypothesis does not argue that there was a technologically advanced species long before humanity, it proposes the interesting hypothetical question and encourages the refinement of scientific methods to dive deep into Earth's behaviors over such a long time span. Imagine a world millions of years ago before humans even existed. In this world, there might have been another civilization. Now, we call them Silurians because of the hypothesis, but they were not like humans, at least we don't think they would be that way. They were advanced beings with their own cities, technologies, and ways of life, as we stressed earlier. They might have built those big and impressive cities just like we do today. Maybe instead of tall skyscrapers, their cities might have been different. And just like us, the Silurians would have had their own ways of communicating and interacting with each other. They might have not only had their own languages and written scripts, but they might have had telepathic abilities. We don't know. They might have had art and music that expressed their emotions and creativity different than how we have today. They might have had tools for farming, construction, and manufacturing that were highly efficient and made their work easier. They could have developed transportation systems that allowed them to travel quickly and explore their world. We talked about them possibly exploring other worlds as well. Maybe they had one of those Star Trek transporter systems. That'd be cool. How might we find these Silurians if they existed? There are these technologies that might have existed. There's no way to look in the fossil record for telepathic abilities. I mean, I don't think that would be anywhere where we could actually find. Advanced technologies? Maybe. I believe researchers might look for indirect evidence of a past civilization. This could include studying climate changes, anomalies in sediment, or traces of nuclear waste. The hypothesis also speculates that artifacts from past civilizations could potentially be found on the Moon and Mars, where erosion and tectonic activity are less likely to erase evidence. So what evidence do we have? I'm glad you asked. I see your question, and I raise you a question. Are we the first advanced civilization on Earth? We think so, but what if we're not? The Drake equation helps estimate how many intelligent alien civilizations might exist in our galaxy. It considers factors like the number of habitable planets and the likelihood of life and technology developing. While we know there are many planets that could support life, it's hard to guess the other factors because we have only one example of life and civilization. We don't have any examples of a technological species going extinct, but we might soon be the first. If we find another instance of life or technology, it would change our estimates. What would be even more exciting is if we saw life starting twice on the same planet. There's a small clue that life might have started independently twice on Earth. A crystal found in Australia has a tiny speck of carbon that looks like it came from living things. This speck has a higher amount of a certain type of carbon that plants release. If this is true, life can begin quickly under the right conditions, but it's hard to verify because these fossils are rare. Greenland and a part of Western Australia are the only places left from that time. Most of the early fossil record has been lost due to Earth's geological activity. It's difficult to track the rise of life. If the geological record is poor, future inhabitants won't have much evidence of our existence. So, can we really know if we're the first technological civilization on Earth? If we're not, it would change our estimates of life and the lifespan of civilizations. And I know this sounds like some lizard Illuminati rubbish, but one effort to properly address an out-there proposal like this is a paper by NASA climatologist Gavin Schmidt and physicist and astronomer Adam Frank that we mentioned earlier, and they did this proposal a few years ago. That's the Silurian hypothesis. The burden of proof of such a claim is massive, and massively on the claimant, and currently there is no real evidence. The actual purpose of this video and of the Silurian hypothesis is to frame a very clear scientific question around a very speculative idea. So let's do just that. Broadly, that question would be, could a non-human industrial civilization have existed before us, even given our current lack of evidence of such? And if so, how long ago would it have had to have existed in order to be completely erased by now? And finally, what traces of such might still exist that we could now look for? But first, to start thinking about what evidence a past civilization may have left behind, let's think about what our civilization will look like in the far future. Our species has been around for 300-ish thousand years, according to what scientists today tell us. But we've only had a major impact for the past 10-ish thousand years of the Anthropocene era. By definition, it's named as the era of our major impact. And that impact has massively accelerated in the 300-ish years post-industrial revolution. When you look at the world now, you might think that our constructions are the most telling signs of our presence once we're gone. But that won't be the case for long. The pyramids may have lasted millennia, but they won't last millions of years. All of our great cities will erode to dust, be covered up or washed away or end up as deserts. Then ocean floors, then sedimentary layers, then mountains, then deserts again. Much will also be pulled beneath shifting tectonic plates, subducted. It'll be reforged into new rock in the mantle, its geological memory almost completely wiped before it reemerges, if it ever does. So will any sign of these works be apparent to a far future? The recycling of the mantle means that anything older than 500 million years is pretty much gone. But we do find plenty of fossilized dinosaur bones of dinosaurs that are hundreds of millions of years old. So surely we'd find remnants of a civilization that's only millions of years old. But that's not necessarily the case, because of the potential limited extent of the civilization, both spatially and temporally. We have, of course, obtained samples of the Earth's surface from many millions of years ago. Some of those areas are still exposed, but most we reach by digging or drilling. But here's the thing. We've accessed only a tiny fraction of 1% of the original Earth's surface from before the Quaternary period, 2.6 million years ago. And modern urban land coverage is less than 1% of Earth's surface today. So if a civilization like us existed a few million years ago, it's extremely unlikely that we today would have stumbled on their physical remnants. That includes cities and artifacts, but also fossils. The fossilization rate is so low that we've only discovered a small fraction of the species that ever existed. Remember that the dinosaurs roamed the Earth from around 240 to 65 million years ago. They've been gone for the third of the time they were around. And across those 180 million years, we have just a handful of specimens. By comparison, our 10,000 years of civilization is barely a blimp in the fossil record. Our industrial era, not even a blip. We can find T-Rexes, but we can't find T-Rexes from a particular few centuries. It's not quite textbook yet, but probably will be soon. Geological eras are periods of time reflected by distinct changes in the geological record. The Anthropocene certainly qualifies. In fact, the geological marker currently being laid down in new sedimentary layers due to our activities bears an eerie resemblance to some of the transitions in the geological record of millions of years ago. So to assess whether any of those previous events might be connected to industrial activity, let's take a look at the specifics of how we're going to confuse future geologists and paleontologists with the crap we're sprinkling over the surface of the Earth that are already seen in the newly laid sedimentary layers. First, there are more direct chemical and isotopic imbalances due to us making a bunch of weird stuff. Industrial pollutants like heavy metals and chemicals such as CFCs and their long-lived byproducts. Consumer waste like rare earth elements and plastics and nitrogenous fertilizers. Radioactive isotopes deposited globally from nuclear weapons testing that will last tens of millions of years. So from all of this, it sounds like it'll be easy for a future civilization to see where we scrawled, "We were here," in the geological record. And if so, we should be able to find a prior one, except that so many of these signals can be duplicated by natural phenomena. I tell you what, we'll come back to those natural explanations. But first, let's see if there are any interesting past geological markers that look anything at all like the ones we're currently forging. Let's go hunting for pre-human technological civilizations. Our geological record contains several candidate weird layers that also represent massive environmental shifts. Some we understand well, like the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary, which is connected to a dinosaur-hating asteroid hitting the Earth. But some still don't have broadly accepted explanations. And here we get to the Silurian hypothesis, which asks if any of these as yet unexplained abrupt shifts in the geological record could have been due to an industrial civilization. Remember Schmidt and Frank? Well, they focus on two broad types, which have a lot of overlap. We have hyperthermals, largely in the Eocene from 56 to 34 million years ago. These are characterized by rapid increases in global temperatures and are often accompanied by significant shifts in carbon isotope ratios. The latter suggests that the temperature shift is due to a rapid injection of CO2 from burning of some organic fuel. We are triggering a hyperthermal now, but could some of the past hyperthermals also have been triggered by something like us? Not impossible, but stand by for the debunkings. Then we have ocean anoxic events, a few of which we found in the earlier Cretaceous and Jurassic periods. These are characterized by a rapid drop in the oxygenation of the oceans, accompanied by a great dying of ocean life. We're seeing the beginning of a potential OAE right now, as in our case, the ancient OAEs are often accompanied by shifts in the CO2 isotopic ratios. Going back further, there have been several abrupt shifts since around 500 million years ago involving combinations of the signals I've already described. All right, enough of the nerd speak. That stuff is interesting. I tried to condense it as much as possible, and I'm just giving the information that I have found on my search on the internet. I hope I can keep that as entertaining as possible, where you can ingest as much as possible. Now, if we put science and facts to the side, and I know that sounds bad when you hear me say that, science and facts to the side, but this channel is called the Lore Chronicles. So I want to talk about possibilities. I want to talk about what could be and what goes beyond just the facts as we know them today. Because what's interesting is facts do change, right? As more information comes out, facts change. Science changes, and it's supposed to change. Anytime that people say that there is a direct law in science, I believe that's a narrow view. I was taught that science is supposed to keep evolving and keep asking the questions, what if and why? There should be nothing that is called settled science. The things that we understand as scientific fact today are just based off of our understanding today. And if we're going to talk about advanced ancient civilizations, we have to talk about Graham Hancock. Now, I want to do a whole video dedicated on Graham Hancock's own research into this topic. I've read several articles that he's written. I've not read any of his books, but I've seen a lot of his podcasts as well, and I find him very credible. I believe that he is very thorough in his research. And in a nutshell, he talks about a younger Dryas period that is basically like a reset that happens on the Earth. I want to say it's every 11,000 years or something like that. And what's even more interesting is the last one was, I think, around 11,000 years ago. It's either 11 or 7, I can't remember. But either way, we're in that zone. And again, I'll do a video dedicated to that. I'll do my research more thoroughly and give you what I can on his findings. So now, what about you? What do you think? Does the Silurian hypothesis sound feasible to you? Also, let me know what other topics on ancient secrets, modern mysteries, and intriguing lore from around the world you'd like for me to cover next. Until then, we'll see you next time.